Easy enough, guys, it is.
I'm good. From time to time, we have folks who we ask you to pray for. And you pray for these people and you haven't got a faintest idea who they are or what their story is other than what we're doing, what we've asked. And so I've asked my good friend Scot Shearer and his wife Sherilyn to come this morning and to share their story. Scott and I know each other from LaVille High School. As far as the athletic department is concerned, he and I have just become dear, close friends. His wife Sherilyn and I have got to know each other a whole lot better through Scott's illness. And so it's just good to have them here today. And I think that the worship was really well suited to what you guys really want to talk about this morning because of their story. And I want today not just to be about their story, but about how God is really working in their hearts and in their lives. And so here's the first thing. Can you all just smile at them? There. All right, there. Okay. Some of you waving that you know. This is a very friendly group of people. And we're going to be pretty informal, just kind of like, I'm just going to ask them some questions. And then if you guys have questions as far as that's concerned, we'll do a little Q&A as well. We really want this to be very, very informal but very helpful as far as how God is working in their hearts and in their lives. So let's start. You've got a mic. Is that mic on?
It is. I've already taken care of that.
You got taken care of it. Right?
I got eye contact.
You got eye contact
with the guy that runs the board back there, so I'm in good shape.
Good. All right. So why don't you tell us about what happened? You know, the story. Where did this all begin? Almost a year ago, as far as your illness and we'll kind of go from there. So everybody, because some of you haven't got the faintest idea who these people are or what their story is. So we'll kind of let you tell a little bit about what happened to you as far as your body is concerned.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off with something funny.
Start off with something funny.
Because
I have no jokes around here, do I? No.
Okay.
No. See how what a loving, great, kind conversation. All right. So start off with something.
So we're going to start off with something funny today. Okay. So there's this 86-year-old lady, and she was going out on a date, and she came home to her son, and he said, "Hey, how'd your date go?" And she said, "Well, the date went pretty well," but she said, "I had to smack him 3 times." And he said, "Well, was he starting to get fresh with you?" And she said, "No, I had to make sure he wasn't dead." Well, the guy was 90 years old. I did forget to add that part of it.
Don't laugh at him.
Yeah, don't laugh at me. Laugh with me.
All right.
It was a little corny.
Great.
You ask the high school kids back there, and they're going to go, "What in the world is he saying up there?"
All right, so tell me about the illness. What did you have? What was the, as far as this all started back in, actually, March of last year?
Well, I think I'm going to let her start.
Go right ahead.
Because you said I was going to talk the whole time.
I did.
So it started back in February. Scott had what we thought was bronchitis. And he went to the urgent care clinic. Yep, you have bronchitis. Gave him some medication. Sent him home. Say, take a couple days off from school. Rest up. Then it progressed to going to an ER one night, where they found out that he had more than just bronchitis, that it was maybe the start of pneumonia. We were at the ER one night. He had a breathing treatment, got some IV fluids because he was severely dehydrated. I don't remember what else. Chest x-ray. Sent him home because the hospital was full at that time. And we wondered back then why they didn't keep him. So we then progressed a little bit further. He called me. It was Tuesday morning. He called me. I had just arrived at work. I was only there maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, and he said, "Can you come and get me and take me back to the urgent care clinic?" I said, "Okay, I'll be there in just 5 minutes." We went from the urgent care clinic where they did another chest x-ray, and they noticed that the pneumonia had progressed to worse. And I could see the difference between what had been taken a week or so ago to where he was at that time. And they said, "You need to go to the hospital." and you need to go right now. And you can either drive him or you can take the ambulance. Well, I thought, heck, I'm not spending $500 for an ambulance charge, so I'm going to just take him to the hospital.
She and Karen get along quite well. We'll stuff him in the trunk and we'll just take him, we're not wasting $500.
And it just so happened earlier in that, while Scott was at home, I had prayed over him and I said, Lord, just please put the right people in our paths to make him get better. Send the right people. It just so happened that while we were at the urgent care clinic waiting, that the, I don't know what you call a nurse physician, was knows the people there at Goshen Hospital very well and were able to get us into PCU that morning. About an hour and a half. So we bypassed the emergency room and went directly up to PCU. From there, we underwent a bronchoscopy, which is where they go down and they scope the inside of the lungs, take tissue samples, see what's going on, why is he sick, why isn't he getting better, what is the cause of the pneumonia. We then went from being in PCU to being transferred to ICU on a Saturday morning at Goshen Hospital because he was progressively getting worse. He was not getting any better. And he was having a panic attack. He couldn't understand why he was being moved from PCU to ICU. And it was only because, he was getting worse. So he was in ICU for a couple of days. They did some more tests. And then it was decided on a Tuesday that he needed to go to IU Methodist on Wednesday. And so Tuesday, we didn't know what to do. We were like, this is the only alternative. And at that point, he's not really coherent enough to know what's going on and what's not. So,
right, because I had gone over and seen him with a breathing. They've intubated him at this point in time, as far as that's concerned. And he's pretty much out of the whole really understanding what's going on.
So Tuesday night, we had 3 different prayer services. We had Sister Nora, who is the chaplain there at the hospital, came up and laid hands on him and anointed him with oil. And if nobody's ever been to a service like that, let me tell you, God works. He works in mysterious ways. And so then we had a family time, prayer time, where my couple of my cousins and an uncle came and prayed with us. And then on Wednesday morning, he was intubated because that was the day that he was going to be transferred to IU Methodist. And all this time, I'm trying to work on top of everything, take care of the home, take care of our dog. We don't have any children, so our only child is our dog, Milo. So trying to take care of that, trying to take care of my mother, who was in a nursing home, take care of the finances, and I just said, okay, I can't do this on my own anymore.
Okay, so let's stop right there. Is anybody here can identify with what this woman was going through? Because aren't some of you right now kind of in that situation where life just feels pretty overwhelming, and you're just going, it's just kind of piling on. That's why I wanted these guys to come and share their story, because I think it is so real in some of the things that many of you I know are experiencing right now. So fast forward, that's what we do. We get down to Indy, right?
Yeah, so we go down to Indy. My sister Judy, who's not with us here today, but I brought my other sister Anita, who's been my rock since we were down in Indy and back home. So we go to Indy. We're there, he's in ICU, and he just looks like he could die any second. There were a couple of times that we thought that he could have died. So we're in ICU. They ended up doing a lung biopsy on him to determine exactly what he had, and then they found out that he had a fungal infection inside his lungs, which were in the tissue of his lungs. So they treated him with amphotericin B, which is a very high antifungal medication. He was on that, for at least 2 weeks. And then on top of that, had high doses of prednisone to keep the inflammation in the lungs down. But to know that he's intubated and he can't talk. He tries to motion with his hands. Thankfully, my sister Judy went down to Indianapolis with me because there's no way I could do it on my own. Absolutely no way I could do it on my own. And I knew my family back here would take care of everything at home. So all I had to do was focus on him. And let me tell you, there is nothing more helpless feeling than when you see a spouse or a loved one in a bed, intubated, totally out, and all you can do is sit there and hold his hand and pray.
And cry.
And cry. And I did a lot of that.
Yeah. And see, that's what you guys are praying for. And it's kind of hard to paint that picture, but that was what was going on as we came back and asked you to be praying for that situation. Because as Karen and I went down, we made several trips down to Indianapolis to go see Scot and Sheryl. And the first time I came in and saw him, he was just ashen gray. And he had lost so much weight. And Karen and I both looked at each other and said, this isn't good. This is not good at all. So there was a sense of just, this was a life or death type of situation. This is a fungal infection, but it really wasn't just something that was going to take
No, it was, I mean,
Why don't you tell them what it is? Had they make that
They
determination?
knew it was blastomycosis, but he also had organizational pneumonia on top of it. So his lungs were really damaged, and they still are. And he may never, ever get the full use of his lungs again.
What's the odds of getting blastomycosis? Because that's part of the deal.
Very,
here.
very odd.
What were the odds of it?
You know, I don't even remember. Do you remember the odds?
1 in 100,000.
1 in 100,000.
People get this, yeah.
People will get it. And most of the time, the people that do get it are hunters. Fishermen, because it's airborne, it's out in the woods, it's in the soil. So people that hunt and they open up their animals after they kill them and they breathe in the spores and it goes in the lungs. And we don't know how he got it. We just know that he got it. And this was our next phase of our journey. And let me tell you, it was a true faith walk for me. Because I couldn't worry about what was going on at home. And I knew that once we got to Indianapolis, we stayed at a hotel for 3 nights. It was also when the NCAA basketball tournament was in Indianapolis. So we had to leave. We had to get out of the hotel Friday. Okay, we
Set
knew
some priorities in life, you know. Yeah.
we knew nobody in Indianapolis. So I called my boss and I said, hey, can you hook us up with some place to stay while we're down here? Because we need a place to stay. She said, okay, let me make some calls. It just so happened that we were able to connect with a group called the Fairhaven Foundation in Indianapolis. It's a Christian-based organization, and they were able to provide an apartment fully furnished at no charge as long as we needed to stay there. Okay, that's a God moment. That's putting your faith and trust in God, because that is the only way I could do this journey. And I have chills right now, and I know that's because that's God talking. And to know that, he's laying in the bed, and we were blessed with people that gave us food. I know you guys, the Cox family, sent down a whole cooler full of food. But it was things like that things we didn't expect people to do were doing. I mean, you guys came over. I was home for a weekend, and the youth group here came over.
You guys remember the youth group? We went to the house. How many of you guys remember how the youth group went? Yeah, I was going to say, put up your hand. Nice. There you go. So all these guys came over, and we raked their entire yard.
Yeah, you want to come back again? Because we could use it again. You're hired.
Okay, we had how many
Seriously.
bags? We had 30-some bags?
Yes, and now that Borden's will pick it up, so
Okay,
yeah.
so
we don't have to haul it
so
anywhere.
we'll see. We might go back over because there's a Dairy Queen just right around the
Yeah,
corner
there
right
is.
there. So, okay.
Yeah,
So how are
so-
you? What you say it's your faith walk. What's helping you? Are there verses? What's doing? How is that? Because folks here are saying, okay, yeah, I hear that faith walk, but what does that practically look like for you?
Well, while we were in Indianapolis, my sister Judy and I had, if you ever heard of the Daily Bread, okay, we did that. We did that devotion every single morning while he was in the hospital. That was our time. We read the devotion, we read the scripture, we prayed.
And then they did it with me at night before they left me.
Yeah. So, and every day, the scriptures that we read and the storyline fit every single time, wherever we needed. I can even remember a time, it was right after Easter, and I told Judy, I said, "Oh, I don't know how much more I can take of this. When are we ever going to be able to go home?" And she said, "Okay, let's pull the car over, let's stop and pray right now." And that's what we prayed. We got to.
Little did they know.
Little did we know that we get up to PCU where Scott is at, and he says, "They're letting me go home on Wednesday." It's another God moment. There was a scripture that you had given to us that you said that your grandmother liked, which was in Psalms 121. I lift up my eyes into the hills from whence you come. There are so many times that I have to do that, and still today I still have to do it, because trying to take care of him, to work full time and take care of a house, it's overload. Thankfully, my sister Anita would come over on Wednesdays and help me do my dishes and laundry and whatever I needed her to do, because I could not do it on my own. And I know it's by God's grace that I can do what I do today. And there was, I was listening to Joel Osteen one night, or one day we were traveling somewhere, and he brought up this the story of how when you are in the midst of trials and tribulations and difficulties that come your way, that God does provide. He gives you the grace that you need to go on every single day. You don't get that grace before, but you get it in the midst of your trials. And that's exactly where we're at.
Yeah, I went over on Monday night, and we talked about that. As far as the scripture talks about that God won't give us more than we can handle, but when we're in the midst of it, he gives us that grace and sufficiency to see us through. Now, I don't know about you, but I want that ahead of time. I want that grace now, and then I'll walk. And God says, no. Many times it's not until you get in the midst of that. It just reminds me of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before they're getting ready to be sent to the fire. We don't know. Maybe you're going to send us into the fire, but God will give us the grace that we need while we're in the midst of that fire. So we've handed the mic over to you, buddy. So what's going through your mind now while you're laying down in a hospital and can't talk? How many can imagine Coach Shearer not being able to talk, huh? Is that just killing Scott? How many of the youth would like for him to have a tube put down his throat some more so that he can't talk at school? They all said amen to that back there too. Okay.
Yeah, and to try and communicate, we had the board that had the letters ABC on it, and so he would try to point with his fingers and we were like, and it was at one point we were just so frustrated, and he would get so frustrated, he just like forget it, because he couldn't say anything. So yeah, that was challenging.
Yeah. So what's going through your mind now this whole time when you're down in Indy?
I don't know what's going on.
Okay, what are you thinking?
I mean, that's the big thing, is because I'm oblivious. Okay, I'm sick. I have bronchitis. I have pneumonia. Okay, give me medicine. Give me a shot. Whatever it takes to do, just go ahead and do that to me, and we're going to get well again. And it was interesting, because every test and every procedure that they ran came back clear or negative. And I was on the largest dose that they could give me, the good stuff of antibiotics, and nothing was working. And I'm wondering, and as I'm laying there, in order, a prerequisite to go from Goshen to Indy was I had to be intubated. I don't know what that's like. I've never had that happen before in my life. Well, we're going to knock you out. Okay, I guess I get to sleep for a while. That's pretty cool, I guess. But I get down there to Indy, and I can't talk, and they're giving me this board, and I'm trying to do letters, and no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Start over. And for me not to be able to verbalize that, it's like that wasn't happening. So as I'm laying there, and I'll tell you what, if you've had the worst cold you've ever had, where you felt like your body is run down, and you felt like you've been run over by a Mack truck, that's how I felt tenfold. And I couldn't breathe. And I'll be honest with you, there was 2 times where I thought, this is it. And one of them, I looked at her. Her and Judy came walking in the morning, and I put my arm up as high as I could, and I went just like this. Because I thought I was done. And it's very helpless. And I'll tell you this. I'm up here this morning because of 3 things. And it gets hard for me to talk. That's why I said she needs to talk more. Because I get very emotional about things like this. There are things that I take very seriously. Family's one of those. My softball team's another one of those. And my friend's another one. And 3 things these are the 3 reasons why I'm here. Prayers from people like you folks, good doctors, and the good Lord up above. And that's the only reason why I'm still here. But there were several times where I thought through this as I'm laying. You know, you wanted to be boss of your life. You wanted to control things. You wanted to do things the way you wanted to do them. And God's like, not this time, Scott. This is like a major TV timeout for me. I mean, we're not going for 3 minutes. We're going for 12 months. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I would occasionally, through all of this, out of the blue, get a text from one of my softball players. Hey, Coach, how you doing? Just want to check in on you. People that would drive to Indy from up here just to see me, and I thought, I'm not that important of a guy. I'm just like you and me. I mean, you know, it's ordinary people living ordinary lives. That's what I thought. But the special thing out of all that was knowing that Steve and Karen would come down and talk and be with Sherilyn, because even though I was ill, she's the one that needed the emotional support. She's the one that, through everything, is the one that needed the rock that she talked about. And someone had mentioned, and I don't remember who it was, about writing a book.
I was getting ready to ask you, what's the title? What's the title of the book?
And so we're thinking, and I'm going back and forth in my mind, and I thought, you know what? There's a book out right now from Todd Gongwer called Lead for God's Sake. My title of the book, if it ever gets written, would be ... Do you trust me? Because I've had to learn to do a lot of trusting. I've had to stop taking control and stop being in charge of my life and saying, okay, God. It was about August, and I'm not good. We had gotten home. Getting home, going to Kindred was a mess. They put my recovery back probably a month because of the people that were in charge. Just they didn't follow what they should have followed. They didn't follow the protocol. Okay, so, but what I'm saying is, from that point, moving forward, now we're in August, and we're praying at night because we do it religiously every night before we go to bed. I don't care what's on TV. Turn the TV off, and let's pray. And we're praying until we're done. And I've always taught Cheryl, or told Cheryl, that, you know, you pray from the heart. You pray what's on your mind, and you just talk to God. And I said, God, I can't do this anymore. It's all yours. You have to help me. So I started to go through therapy once we got to fall-ish. Was it October? Where I started physical therapy.
Well, actually, you did it in July.
Well, we did some home therapy first, home physical and occupational therapy at home, and they would come out, and it's totally different than going to physical therapy at the actual facility because they have so many more things to do and so many more options when you're doing those kinds of things. But for me, the biggest thing out of all of this is, do you trust me? And so my question to you is today, do you trust God when things get tough? Do you trust God every day when things aren't so tough and things are rolling along and it's a nice smooth ride? Do you trust him? Or do you wait until you get to the end where it's close, where you're like, oh my, what's going to happen? Just remember that. Do you trust him? That's what this whole journey's been about for me. Do you trust me?
So how are you different today? What's the new and improved Scott from a year ago? Not that you were a bad person, because you and I have known each other for a long time, but there's probably, to me, a more obvious expression of your faith. So talk a little bit about how you're a different person than you were a year ago.
Well, I now do express that a lot more. And I've told my softball kids this several times. Coach could get fired for this, but you know what? We're going to pray. And I said, you know what? If I get fired because we pray, okay. I do express my faith a lot more now than I ever did before. It's easier now for me to be able to stop and listen to what God has to offer instead of dictating the tempo of what I want to do. So my selfishness has actually gone backwards quite a lot from what I used to be to what I am now. My selfishness has changed. We do devotions more now. We did them a lot when we first got married, and it's like it was something that just got caught up in everything else, and then all of a sudden the devotions went away, and the prayer went away, and the connection with God went away, and now that's back. And now it's God walking daily with us to help us be able to maneuver our way through life again. Yeah. Because life had a very serious interruption. And it's just special to know for me. One thing I walked in today, Cheryl and Anita walked in, and he said, hey, we got this great worship team. You know what? Is it this lady right here that's in charge?
Yes, she's the one.
And what's her name?
That's Erin.
Erin, fantastic job. Yes, one of the best that I've heard when it comes to worship teams. And then you got your 4 bodyguards up here too that are just waiting to sing for Jesus right along with you. Okay, but you guys do a great job. But thank you all. I sent this tweet out a long time ago, but it holds true today, and I'll say it in front of all of you. Thank you does not cover what it meant for Cheryl and I to know that you were praying for us. If you prayed, if you thought about us, whatever you did, we will never be able to repay you, okay? But even though I said thank you won't cover it and doesn't, thank you very much.
Amen. So how are you a different person now? And I want to come back to you for a prognosis, where we're at, okay? And then we'll wrap it up here. So how are you a different person?
For me, I know that my strength is not it's not my own strength. It's God's strength that I have. Because to be able to take care of him when he is at home in the bed, can't get up, or needs help with dinner. There are many times that I had to go get dinner or make dinner. I work in 8 to 5. I don't have time to get dinner. So it's called drive-through. What do you want tonight? Or carry out. What do you want tonight? To taking care of the laundry, to whatever. It's very overwhelming. But I know that it's with God's grace that I've been able to continue to do what I do today. Yes, I do get rest. Yesterday was one of those days where all I wanted to do was to sleep. And I know that's God's way of telling me, okay, you need a day off here. You can't continue to push yourself.
She was going to go to work yesterday.
I was going to go to,
I'm going to go for 3 or 4
yeah,
hours.
I was going to go to the office.
So for the caregivers that are out there who are just frazzled, you're saying to them what? You never just take a day.
You got to take a deep breath, and you have to take a day for yourself. Don't ask for help. Don't be afraid. There's somebody out there that can help you. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have siblings that are wonderful. I came home we were home already. Scott had just come home from Kindred, and of course he still was weak. I mean, he couldn't go to the bathroom without me helping him.
Couldn't walk down the hallway.
He couldn't walk down the hallway, which was a whole nother story. But I had my brother. We wanted to put up a new fence in our backyard because we kept getting critters in our yard, and our dog was, after the critters. And I said, okay, so how much will it cost for a wood fence or chain link? What will it cost? And he said, oh, here's the cost. And I said, okay, let's do wood. Okay. And they picked a Saturday. They came out and did it. And I said, okay, so where's the bill?
And I'm laying in bed.
And he's laying in bed.
Said, how much do we owe him?
Yeah, how much is it? Because I got our taxes done, and people have been blessing us financially when we needed it, because Lord knows we needed the finances, because he's not working. So it's just my income. We were very fortunate that the school help paid for things. We were very blessed with people that gave us donations that we don't even know who they came from. So my brother says, I started crying, and I said, thank you for doing that. He said, well, don't stop crying yet, because the fence is free. Big C Lumber donated all the material for our new wood fence. Okay, that's a God thing too. If it wasn't for my brother, Judy spent time with me the whole time I was down in Indy. When I came home for a little break, because we hadn't done our taxes yet, and
you had to teach class.
I had to teach a class, and it was just like, and I told Scott, I said, I have to go home. But Judy was here, Leroy was there, that's her husband. They stayed with him while I was at home with a respite, and that's when you guys came out and cleaned up my yard. And
I should have had the picture so you could have seen it. That was awesome. So
yeah.
So let's go back to Scott, and let's kind of wrap this up and say, what's the prognosis as far as, because you like to say clean bill of health, but there's still some things that you're struggling with right now.
Well, we didn't know this until just recently, but I'd been going to infectious disease doctor in South Bend, and they're kind of in charge of the fungal medication, the itraconazole, the fluconazole, those kinds of medicines that are very expensive. And then I would go to the pulmonologist in Goshen, and they're kind of in charge of the prednisone and the lungs themselves and that kind of thing. And so last Tuesday, or 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, I was at the infectious disease doctor, and she's reading off the CT scan report, and she said, and there's something cranial, I don't know, lymph node that's a little larger than it's supposed to be. And we would have thought by now that with all of the medication that it would have gone down, and it's not gone down. She said it could be nothing. She said it could be residual effects, but she goes, I'm going to leave that to Dr. Hadid, who's the pulmonologist. And then she said, we'll move on from there. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I went this last Tuesday to see him, Thursday, to see him, and we walk in and we get to see the nurse practitioner, and she said, so, we have to talk about this lymph node. And I said, okay. And she said, well, it's 1.4 by 2 centimeters. And she said, normal is 1.0 by 1.8 centimeters. She goes, so it's a little larger, but it's not real big. But she said, it's still of concern, and we want to check it out. And I said, okay. So the short of this is, on Tuesday, I have to be at Goshen Hospital at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 12:30, they are going to do what they call a little biopsy, where they put this really thin needle into my lung area, where they will pull out and see, and then they're going to test it at the facility. They have a pathologist at Goshen, and they're also going to send it to Mayo just to double check and see what it looks like, if it's infection, if it's bacteria, if it's residual, if it's nothing. And I asked her, I said, so what is it? And she said, we don't know. We don't know what it is yet. And I said, okay, what's your gut? And she said, it's not normal, and I'm concerned. And I said, okay, so when can we do this? Well, Dr. Hadid does the procedures on Tuesdays and Fridays. And I said, sign me up tomorrow. Let's just do it and get it over with. Well, we'll check the hospital OR schedule. So they check the OR schedule, and then all of a sudden, she comes back in with Dr. Hadid. And I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? And he said, when I do procedures, I do them in the morning or I do them in the afternoon. He said, I prefer to do them in the morning because there's a team of folks that I always work with. And in the afternoon, it's a totally different team, and sometimes they could be substitutes if somebody has a day off or whatever. And I said, oh, you're talking about the A team and the B team, right? And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, okay, well, so you want the A team. And I said, if you want the A team, I want the A team. So we're going to do it on Tuesday. And the hardest thing in the world, and Carly Unruh can attest to this, the hardest thing in the world for me to do was to tell those kids. But I knew that I needed to communicate to those kids because we're supposed to play a game on Tuesday. And if coach doesn't show up on Tuesday, they're going to be asking questions, and now they're going to be distracted, and I don't want them distracted when they beat Argus. I want them focused and ready to go and go kick somebody's can and put the equipment away and go home until next day. Okay? So I told him, I said, you know what? It's much easier for me to tell you now as opposed to the day before the game, so you have time to adjust in between. And so they know, the administration knows at the school, and you guys know, but I've not made this public. This has never been about me, or this has never been about us. I'm laying in a hospital bed in Indy in PCU, and Sherilyn says, do you know a guy named Mike Pease? And I said, oh yeah, he's the guy that sells us our concession stand products from Gold Medal in Indy. She goes, no, this guy's from Channel 16. And I said, well, what does he want? Well, he wants to do a story on you. I said, for what? Well, they want to do this story on this blastomycosis. And I said, okay. So, and they're willing to send a team down here, like a photographer and a reporter, and do it down here. And I said, well, why don't they just wait till I get home? Because then we knew that we were going to be home within the next week. So that's when they came. And people, I hear people talk, and people think, oh yeah, Shear's after attention again. Nope, that wasn't me. The recent story, I don't know if you watched ABC 57 or Channel 16, the first game back up at Clay was our first road game. And we walk in off the bus, and one of my assistants is being interviewed, and I'm like, oh, well, what are they doing? So I walk inside the dugout, and there's 2 cameras directed right at me. And I said, what are you guys doing here? Well, we're here for you. And I said, what are you here for me for? I'm here for a softball game. Well, no, we're here because we're following up on you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I told my team I felt like I was the biggest distraction to them. And that's not the intention at all. This has never been about me. This has never been about us. It's always, to me, it's always been about prayers, doctors, and the good Lord up above.
Amen. Amen.
That's what it's always been about.
All right, let's wrap it up.
So,
Because we're going to go have lunch afterwards, and I'm hungry.
Well, you just have to hang on
I'm
just a little
just
bit.
kidding.
So,
Just
on
kidding.
on top of all this, we have discovered that Scott developed carpal tunnel syndrome in both hands.
That's from being in ICU.
And that's from being in ICU for as long as he was and tethered down in the same position. We cannot do carpal tunnel surgery until the infection or bacteria or whatever is in his lungs is cleared. So our prayer is not only that the procedure go well on Tuesday, but that they find nothing, or if they find something, that they can remedy it as soon as possible, so that way we can schedule the carpal tunnel surgery, because he needs his hands. And right now, his pain level on a scale of 9 to 10 is probably a 9. And yesterday was a horrible day at home. Horrible. I mean, this man cried because he was in so much pain, and there's nothing I can do for him. Nothing but pray.
Yeah. I thought it was rather interesting as we talked this morning, felt pretty bad about maybe not even coming today, but I'm sure glad.
Yeah, and I told him this morning, I said, you know what? Satan's just trying to get at you from not being able to come and speak, because he doesn't want us to share what we have gone through and how God has walked us through this whole journey. Satan doesn't want to do that. Satan wants us to keep back and just huddle back in our little hole. And I'm sorry, but that's not how it is. That's not how it's going to be. And sometimes I just, when he goes to school, I pray a hedge of protection around him every single day, because he needs it to be protected from the evil one that may come against him.
Amen. Amen. You guys glad they came this morning? Amen. Amen. All right. Here's what I want to do. Aaron has no idea I want to do this. Can I get the worship team up here?
Yeah, we have a song.
Okay, I got a song I want you to do, though. You got a song? What's your song?
We got Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace would be awesome. Jason, can you take the lights down? I want Scott and Sherilyn to come over here. And you know what? I just have a feeling I need my elders and my deacons to come on up here as well. I got some feeling there's probably some other folks here this morning who would just say, you know what? Life's kind of hard right now. We'd love for somebody to pray over us. And so I was just ask you to join them during this song. Why don't we go ahead and stand? And if you'd like to come up this morning, we're just going to come around. Let's go down on the cement down there, guys. Let's just, if you want to come over here, we would love to pray over you this morning as far as anything that may be going on in your life. So come on up if you want to have us to pray over you this morning.